In this speech, I will start by explaining the definition of critical resources and International Materials Agency on the government side of the team. And second, I will explain how the world looks like right now, or the status quo. And third of all, I will explain what is changing when a world critical resources are governed by International Materials Agency. And fourth of all, I will get into my arguments. But first, what is International Materials Agency? International Materials Agency is an international agency that would act as a global organization that manages critical resources. It acts like a centralized and supranational governing body. It is the International Materials Agency does not only manage the critical resources supply, but also allocate the critical resources and to prevent shortage and to mediate trade, to eliminate resources-based conflicts, and to enforce a strict and sustainable protocols of taking, producing, and distributing critical resources worldwide. Now, second of all, what is critical resources? Critical resources are resources that are fundamental for the human race progress, and that it's important to keep the world running. For example, oil. These are used for our logistics. Natural gas. These are used to keep our house warm. And third of all, rare elements that are now used for microchips. These things are, and etc. These things are essential for manufacturing technological product and to keep advancing our green energy and etc. This drives, but we need to know that critical resources does not only drive the human progress but also the human conflict. So how the world look like where critical resources are governed by nations? There are many nations that are using critical resources as a strategic weapons and as a way to blackmail their enemy. For example, we can take an example from the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz between the war between US and Iran. From the early March of 2026, Iran has been restricting and blocking the Strait of Hormuz passage. The impact of this is first inflation. Second of all, energy shortage. There are many nations that are facing oil shortage because of this blockage. Because the Strait of Hormuz before the blockage, there are 20 million barrels of oil passing this strait every day. So it is important for distributing oils. And third of all, because of the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, it gives an immediate impact on the public, on citizens. People are facing oil shortage, and people are facing blackouts, and these are harming innocent people or innocent nations that are not even involved on this conflict. And third of all, what would change when critical resources are governed by International Materials Agency? When critical resources are governed by International Materials Agency, it binds economic and logistical authority. First, what would change? The distribution of rare earths, fossil fuels, are now determined by a global algorithm and needs-based framework that is overseen by professionals. For example, like scientists, economists, and etc., rather than a nation trade ministries. And second of all, when a nation or a company were to build mines, they must follow the Universal Environmental and Labor Standards Protocol that is set by International Materials Agency. Now, moving on to my argument that when critical resources are governed by International Materials Agency, it could eliminate geopolitical weaponization. It could neutralize the ability of powerful nations to use critical resources as a weaponized tool, and to ensure the geopolitical stability. Because first, when critical resources are governed by International Materials Agency, countries or nations or countries or powerful nations that are using critical resources as a weapon, they lose the mechanism and export bars because International Materials Agency are now the only one that is holding that control. And second of all, uh, it breaks the geographic monopolies. Nations that happens to be sitting on 80% of another nation critical resources are now can no longer do that because again the control are now only on this international agency. Now, what is the impact when we give the control to this one international materials agency? First, we see a significant reduction in proxy wars, trade wars, and diplomatic blackmail. And the significance of this, it could prevent a systematic global conflict, and it could guarantee peace by securing critical resources supply. Now, the opposition side of the team might argue that that if we give the control to an international materials agency, it would be unfair to force these resource-rich nations to give away the control. But we, as the government side of the team, we believe that critical resources are important for the entire human race. It is important to keep progressing. And we believe and we see that critical resources are not something that you use for a weapon, but we see critical resources as a public good. That is all proud to propose.